Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer. I have with me Kalavai Venkat and we are going to bring you a new perspective on the advancement of artificial intelligence, what it means, how far behind is India, or is India even in the race, and also the impact of tariffs worldwide as well as in India. First, we'll do with India. If we have time, we might talk about the worldwide effect also. Let's welcome Kalavai Venkat. Venkat, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel. How are you?
Doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing well, Venkat. So first, let's start with. I thought I was going to start with impact of tariffs on India. I don't know. I leave it to you. You can choose
We can do
either
that.
one.
We can do that. We can start with that.
Let's start with the tariffs. So now we are finding out that on the pharma products of India, there are going to be no tariffs. We are also finding out a few other things for which India has got exemption. However, there are other things such as refining, software services, and a bunch of other things that are going to see this 26% impact. How do you see the balance of how it's going to impact India?
I think you made a good observation. You started with pharmaceutical because India is a big manufacturing hub for pharma, where we have a critical differentiator. No other company can match India when it comes to producing pharma products on a large scale, on an industrial scale, at a lower cost and distributing it. That's why during COVID, we saw that Prime Minister Modi was able to provide vaccines to something like 125 nations around the world, 125 countries around the world. Okay, so this is an infrastructure which India has built over a long period of time, and Prime Minister Modi gave it a great impetus during COVID, and that's why India is able to maintain an edge over there. We have a unique selling proposition there, a critical differentiator there, and that's why Trump is exempting India's pharmaceutical exports from tariff. So what does that tell us? It tells us something very clear. If we offer something which is well differentiated from what our competitors, be it China, be it any other country, if what we are offering is better and uniquely differentiated, then we won't be impacted by tariffs. On the other hand, if we are using tariffs as a mechanism, okay, to protect Indian companies and to prevent American or Western companies from entering the Indian market, then in those areas, we'll be hit by tariffs because we do not have a critical differentiator. Take automobiles, for example. I don't think anybody will bet on the fact that Mahindra or Tata or anybody will be exporting their cars to the United States of America and will be able to compete here and sell it in this market. Okay. So whereas if the Indian market is open to the Japanese, to Americans and everyone, and if tariffs are removed, Indian market will be flooded with imported cars. Okay. So this is the reality. That's because our manufacturing, our automobile design, everything is simply no match to what the rest of the world is offering. Okay. So what is the fundamental problem with tariff? The fundamental problem with tariff is it's a legacy of the old license quota permit Raj, which Indira Gandhi unleashed upon India and laid waste to India. It prevented foreign companies from posing a challenge to Indian corporations. It prevented the reduction of cost. It led to, the entrenchment of Indian companies, pathetic labor laws and everything. All of that drove the cost up. Okay. So I think in one of the previous podcasts, Sree Iyer, we have talked about solar panels, right? Look at all the critical industries. Let's start with solar panels. Solar panels are predominantly manufactured in China, and China manufactures more than its requirement so that they have the backup and they can also deluge the market with solar panels and all their components. And even after India slaps a 40% tariff, or I think 60% tariff on Chinese imports, solar panels made in India are 40% more expensive than the imported Chinese panels. What does it tell you? It tells you a few things. One, Indian manufacturing and design is highly inefficient. We are simply no match to China. Number two, it also points to a lot of local level corruption. Take China. If China were to set up a semiconductor factory, they can do it in a matter of days, if not weeks. matter of weeks, if not days. In India, try to acquire a piece of land to set up a semiconductor factory or to set up anything, right? Any other production system. It will take you months and months and months, sometimes even years to acquire the land because any political party can come and encroach and start a protest and riot and all these things. Then India's labor laws are pathetic, and that allows every politician to just come and poke his nose and then prevent the company from flourishing. And then, most importantly, Sree Iyer, we all saw that, right? When in the early 2000s, when the IT outsourcing industry picked up, the DMK and ADMK politicians grabbed all the land in Chennai, especially around OMR, ECR, etc., where the software companies are coming up, and then they sold those to those companies at an exorbitant price on 99-year lease. That drove the cost up. So corruption and inefficiencies drive the cost up. And when the cost goes up, you are not in a position to compete against the Chinese in the international market. So what did India do? To hide our inefficiencies, we started imposing tariffs on imports. But at the end of the day, Trump has a legitimate point. So he has slapped what 27% tariff on India, but that's only half of the tariffs India is imposing on American imports. India charges 54%, and Trump is only charging half of that. That tells you that Trump is still a visionary. Why is he doing that? He's not doing that out of friendship with Modi. Friendship with Modi is great. Okay, that allows them to have transparent conversations and be open about everything and form a partnership and build strategy together. However, the reason he is making that concession to India is Trump and the United States are looking at India as a long-term partner. They are looking at India as a counterbalancing force to China. They would want India to step up and partner with America in critical areas like renewable energy production, semiconductors, artificial intelligence, drug discovery and research, immunotherapy, all of these areas, space technology. Every one of these areas, US would want India to become a collaborative partner, make investments. Education is another great area. Why is India has a handful of top-notch colleges, especially at the undergrad level like IIT, but by and large, the Indian college system, K-12 system is pathetic. So is there a room for American imports without tariff to catapult India on a growth trajectory? The answer is yes. Can we bring the Cornells of the world, the Caltechs, the MITs, the Urbana-Champaigns and Berkeleys and Whartons of the world to India and replace the local colleges? The answer is yes. That will benefit all of India. But to go to that, India has to become an open economy. It cannot protect itself with tariffs because the longer you do, it's not only impositions from the US and other things, but it's also going to impact India in a very adverse manner because at the end of the day, this world is a small village. Okay, if a small Israel whose population is less than Chennai's population can innovate so much and invent so much and drive so much of R&D in cutting edge areas like genetics, virology, space technology, artificial intelligence and everything, India is lagging behind. So I think this is a shock treatment. India has been given a very clear message. You cannot run a protectionist economy. Instead, you have to compete on a reciprocal basis. If the US is opening up its market, so should India to the United States imports. This is number one. Then you mentioned software exports, right? There's going to be tariff on software export, which I think is good. Okay, like we just spoke in the Tamil podcast a few minutes ago, that very soon AI will replace a lot of jobs. Already Zuckerberg has said in Meta, all the jobs up to mid-level software engineers, who are the brightest of the talent in the US, that can be replaced by AI. Okay, and if that happens, then all the outsourced jobs in India can very soon be replaced. And I think this challenge is a good thing for India because you don't want to stuck with a bullock cart when the rest of the world is riding a Suzuki Hayabusa. Okay, the world has changed and India has to catch up. And the only way to do that is to accept that we cannot postpone the pain. We have to experience it. And India has to really up its game, change its education system, bring in more transparency, eliminate corruption at all levels, and then truly make the Indian workforce productive. Not just the engineering workforce, but even all the way down to labor, we have to make it productive because China is way ahead. Okay, China has this 996 model, 9 to 9, 6 days a week, everyone works, and the skill levels are significantly high. That's the reason last week AstraZeneca invested $2 billion in innovative research in immunotherapy in China. They did not even consider India. India is no match to China. In fact, China publishes more in journals and research publications than even the United States of America. So if India were to ever compete with all of them, then it has to get out of this tariff mindset, protectionism, and all these things, and stop propping up companies, Indian companies that are unfit to compete in the international market. Open it up, embrace the new economy, partner with America, and that's the only way to tide over this crisis. But in the long term, that will be to India's advantage because all the low-level software job you are doing today will evaporate. That market is over. Instead, this will compel India to up the game, to up the skill sets, to change the way the training is imparted to the workforce, starting from K to 12 through college, at the workplace, and then change the economic model itself from socialism to capitalism so that there is very little government intervention or interference, and India can truly become an alternative to China. I think this is like giving a vaccine shot. On the day you give a vaccine shot to a child, she or he would fall ill for a couple of days, get fever, but it's going to protect the child in the long run. I am looking at this as a vaccine shot. Back to you, sir.
Thank you so much. And viewers, this is actually a reality check. And Venkatji, you may have read this. Warren Buffett said that if you have the world falling around you and you don't know what to do with your life, what would be the best advice I can give you? And he said that you invest in yourself, believe in what you can do, and you find out what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. In other words, you do your own internal SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Once you figure out who you are, then you can face the world. In fact, Bhagavad Gita says the same thing. I don't remember the verse. Maybe you remember, Venkatji. I'll give you the gist of it. Where
I am getting old as well, my friend. My memory is not as good as it used to be earlier.
So Krishna tells Arjuna, you are your best friend. You are your worst enemy. Actually, I have done this thing as a picture and slide also in one of my monologues. This is what each one of us have to take away. Each of us. And 10 years ago, they had predicted that the new workforce entering the market will actually take not one, but 2 or 3 professions. In other words, you train for becoming an engineer, you might do something else. In fact, that something else will be 2, 3 totally unrelated things. Why? Because technology is changing so fast. I did not think that I would get into
point. That's a great point.
Blog.
Sorry to interject. You made a great point. That's why I just wanted to add to that. For Patrick Soon-Shiong, earlier professor at UCLA, top-notch oncologist, more than 50 years of experience, and also, an entrepreneur, who has built a massive company on immunotherapy and everything. BioShield is the name of the company, and absolutely top-notch talent, right? And he talks about cancer cure, some of the cutting-edge things they are doing. And since you mentioned all disciplines coming together, one of the findings he made was that the COVID virus is oncogenic, meaning COVID virus triggers inflammation. Inflammation in turn triggers the replication of cancer cells. Okay, and as a result, the cancer cells are not cleared from the body. And for example, in colon and other places, now you have 8-year-old children, 8 years. Okay, their age is in single digit. Those children are today getting pancreatic cancer, colon cancer, and all these things. So now, what is the solution? The solution depends on so many factors. Number one, working with immunology, working with virology, genetic research, then running a lot of simulations using AI, right? Because you obviously cannot, if you're going to cure pancreatic cancer, you cannot take an experimental drug and inject it to the body of a child. That's where you run what is known as AI experimentation, which will consume a lot of compute resources. So, long story short, if you are looking at a field like this, how can I prevent cancer, or how can I vaccinate somebody against cancer. That's what immunotherapy is focused on. BioShield is focused on. When we look at all of these things, look at the number of disciplines it touches, from probabilistic models to artificial intelligence to genetics to virology to everything, right? So all of these things means that we have to up our game, and then there is a terrible laziness, okay, that has been encouraged by politicians in India, okay, over a long period of time. I'm not saying Modi, okay. Modi is one exception to that, because in the recent interview with Lex Friedman, Modi made a very important point. So he told everyone that we have to up our game, and then only when we are knowledgeable and only when we are well trained, we can survive in the future world. So he's an exception. But look at most of the politicians, including from our home state, Sree Iyer, Tamil Nadu, how they educate. Tamil Nadu used to be number one in education 40, 50 years ago, but it's nowhere in the picture today. It's one of the worst states in Tamil Nadu when it comes to K-12 education or even college education. So the key here is we have to up our game. We have to understand only one thing. The future is not constrained by national boundaries. Look at who carried the recent 210-pound plus rockets for India, those satellites for India. It was not carried by ISRO, it was carried by SpaceX, because cutting edge technology is there only with SpaceX, which ISRO doesn't have. And then look at everything we may have to depend on. For example, if you want to drill an underground city, then you have to depend on the boring company of Elon Musk. Okay. And if you want to work on immunotherapy, then you have to depend on BioShield and similar companies. And India is simply no match to a country like China. So, for example, China publishes more research and journal articles than even America. And Mandarin Chinese leads English in that front. India is absolutely nowhere in the picture. So let's connect the dots. In the future, the economy is going to depend on multiple disciplines, but all of them are knowledge-centric. Artificial intelligence, genetics, virology, immunotherapy, all the mathematical models, computational systems, and then the infrastructure to support all of these things and everything. And this skill set is not something you can acquire overnight. And you cannot stick to your old trick of, look, I'll get 35% mark in 10 plus 2, and then using reservation, I'll sail through. Those days are over, okay? Because if telemedicine can impart treatment without the doctor seeing you face to face, then you can be assured that most of the other jobs will be replaced. That's why upping the game and improving the quality of education, making it really tough, is important for India, not only to thrive, but also to compete with China and become a counterbalancing force. Because if tomorrow we invite Elon Musk to say, hey, come and manufacture, make in India, make all of your Tesla, all of your boring machine, SpaceX components in India, his first question will be, how can he take that risk? You are no match to China. So we have to make ourselves worthy of competition. And the only way we can do that is to completely redo our education system and make it truly competitive. Back to you, sir.
Thank you so much. So let's get back to, where does India begin? India has a challenge. First of all, mid-level software programmers, like you said in a Tamil program, you can talk to us a little bit about what Mark Zuckerberg observed about the fact that AI can replace up to mid-level software programmers. These are people who are making probably $300,000 a year in United States.
A lot more, right? So, for example, that's a great point, right? So Mark Zuckerberg just spoke. In fact, Elon Musk spoke the same thing. And I'll start with Zuckerberg, Meta. And he said in Meta, which is Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, everything, AI can today replace all the way up to mid-level software engineers. So what kind of engineers get into Meta? These are engineers from top-notch computer science programs in the world, like MIT, Stanford, Urbana-Champaign, Berkeley, Carnegie Mellon, and come to India, it's the top 5 IITs. These are the ones who get into Meta. And a mid-level engineer has about 10, 12 years experience. So you are looking at somebody around 33, 34 years of age. And many of them do have master's degree and specializations, even PhDs. If AI could replace them, then it can definitely replace all the outsourced jobs in India, and which the Indian engineers are doing. This is the reality. But don't look at the dark side. look at the opportunities that are coming out. In 2008, if somebody had said, hey, would you like to come and join Uber? And we are launching something called crowdsourcing for taxi service or Airbnb for hotels, you would have been an early starter, right? If you are one of the top 1,000 employees at Uber or Airbnb, today you are a millionaire. Okay. So the trick always is staying ahead of the curve. Okay. If you can predict which way the economy is headed, which way the technology is headed, and if you can invest in those areas, then you are going to be a successful person. So let's pay attention. Which way is the world headed? Number one, let's start with Professor Patrick Soon-Shiong, who talks about how immunotherapy is going to be the future. And it's not just an empty story, right? He has already done clinical trials for HPV, for HIV, and for COVID in some of the cases, and across various zones, including the US, South Africa, and now he has transferred the technology free of cost to Serum Institute to 𝗤𝗏𝗡𝗏 in India. Okay, so this is going to be the future, and this is an emerging future because it's where all the disciplines, AI, data science, analytics, virology, genetics, genome sequencing, everything is coming together. Trials, all the mathematical models needed for that. So this is the time for India to invest in it and run at breakneck speed. And if we do that, and then if we improve the skill sets, what we'll be doing is we'll be pivoting ourselves around an emerging technology, emerging economy, and emerging research. And I think that's the most critical phase. And this is not the phase for sweet talk for people, because at the end of the day, I can talk as sweetly as you want. Look, I can say, oh, education is very stressful. I'm going to make the quality of education easier for you. But who is it going to help? Just one second.
Go ahead and get some water. Viewers, we would request all of you to like this video, because there is a lot of stuff that we are foreseeing is going to happen. In fact, it is already happening. This is not some sort of Bhavishya-Vani. This is Vani that is actually being felt on the ground today. Here, you are seeing some people already take advantage of AI. But do you want to be an AI application developer, or you want to be an AI foundational developer? The foundational developer will know what's the next thing to do.
Or even a user, right? Even a user. Okay. Take one example, AI. Okay. So, for example, both Elon Musk and Patrick Soon-Shiong have made a very absolutely great point, right? Like, for example, Grok, Elon Musk Grok has been running a lot of those experiments on AI, on medical diagnosis, as well as prognosis. And Elon Musk says that today, Grok is making predictions and diagnosis that are as accurate or even better than what doctors do. And he's talking about the American doctors. And for the benefit of everyone, the quality of doctors in the United States is awesome. Okay, because you have to get at least 493 out of 528 in MCAT to get into medical college. But that's like 93%. And then, but at 93%, you're not going to become a practicing doctor. You'll end up working for insurance companies. You have to go above 502, 503 to land job as a practicing physician. And if you want to be in anesthesiology or neurosurgery or neurology or cardiology, you are looking at near perfect scores, 526, 527 out of 528. Contrast is with India. NEET is no match to MCAT. NEET is a simple exam. Why do I say that? Count the number of people who are getting a perfect 720 out of 720. Contrast that with IIT JEE Advanced. Nobody gets a perfect score. In fact, in any given year, in IIT JEE Advanced, only 5 students cross 90% score. So NEET is a very simple exam. But despite a simple exam, even in general category, at 50% score, something like 360, you can get into medical college. 50% in 12th grade for general category to get into medical college. That shows how easy the system is and how lazy the student community has become. Go down all the way to the scheduled caste category. At 15%, 15%, they can become doctors. So imagine a situation where somebody with 15% in 12th grade who is unfit to become a doctor is your cancer surgeon today. Don't you think AI will replace this job? Absolutely, yes. Okay. So this is where I think we have to accept the challenge. Okay. There are no shortcuts. Shortcuts, like Modi told Lex Friedman, shortcuts will cut short your journey. Okay. There is no, you are not going to make it to the destination. So India has to accept a reality that the economy is changing. AI is completely turning everything upside down. And that means we have to move up the knowledge curve, move up the knowledge chain. And then to do that, we have to compete with China, we have to compete with America. And then the national boundaries are gone. And tomorrow, if there is a cancer research coming from immunotherapy, it does not know national boundaries. So if India doesn't do it today, it's curtains down for India. That is it.
In fact, the Minister of Commerce, 𝗑𝗍𝗄𝗎 𝗔𝗚 also is echoing the same thing. Let's put up that picture, please. This is something that he said in a recent startup enclave called Startup Mahakumbh. Did a reality check on what Indian startups are doing. Can't be shy of competition. Chinese startups are building in EVs, semiconductors, robotics, automation. Indian startups are making fancy ice creams and cookies, not exactly healthy. Instant grocery delivery is a waste of resources on hyper fast logistics. Indian startups must introspect on the value they are adding compared to China.
Awesome. Thumbs up for everything. Okay, there are some entrepreneurs sitting here. So, Sree Iyer, you and I are Tambrams and not necessarily entrepreneurial folks, but I'm sure that there are Marwadis, not good HTRs, and others, who are Jains and others who are truly entrepreneurial. They can take this to next level. But as a techie, let me take the last point.
I respectfully disagree. I come from Pallava country where Brahmin Kshatriyas, they were both.
I know.
They were all both.
I was creating a stereotype just to provoke everyone. Okay.
I know.
But here is the thing, right? So take the same example, like food delivery. What is that all of these Swiggies and Zomatos of India have done? They have, or even the Olas of India have done, is to copy an invention from the West, from the United States, right? US has Uber Eats, US has Uber and Airbnb, so India copies the same thing. Okay, that's great. Okay, so if you just are focused on market valuation for your company and exit with an IPO, that's fine. Okay, but that's not going to fundamentally transform the economy, and it's not an innovative initiative. So what can be innovative? If there is somebody who's entrepreneurial, okay, here is a free recommendation for you. Okay, so take farm to table. Okay, agricultural produce all the way from your farm, planning for it, investing for the seeds, fertilizers, everything, all the way to delivering the finished products on the table. Okay, this industry is going to either destroy India, the farming industry, agriculture, or it'll undergo significant revolution. Because still 2/3 of Indian populations depend on agriculture, whereas India cannot even support 5 to 10% of the population. There is no value add. Okay, so now can it not become a complete futures options based industry? For example, let's say Sree Iyer lives in Chennai, and then you know what you're going to buy for the entire month. Okay, and the AI can kick in, and AI can tell Sree Iyer you are spending 20,000 rupees a month on grocery products, and here is how you're buying. And AI can redefine everything, and we can get you to sign a blockchain contract with the producers, whether it's a milk producer, a dairy farmer, or somebody who makes your grains and other things, or rice, whatever it is, vegetables. They will have it delivered, create a complete ecosystem, but you buy the options. So instead of spending 10,000 a month, you may now spend 8,000 a month, but you have to buy the options. Okay, you are now committed to buying it. What does it mean? It significantly drops the cost of money. That's number one. So now your farmer doesn't have to go to the middleman, which is what is happening in place like Punjab. That's why they go and blockade the streets. Okay, they take money from the middleman and they pay significant interest. Gone. Okay, you sign the blockchain contract, and then Sree Iyer has committed a year in advance for buying that. Okay, so that money now can become into some kind of a holding account. We can figure out the details, but you have now redefined, right? So now from being simply a commodity trade, this has become an options trading platform. Okay, this can be extended to everything. So these are the areas where we can completely hedge against inflation, okay, reduce the cost of money, drive the net present value higher. But more importantly, for a dairy farmer or even a farmer, he could now say, right, I have been advising some of the folks here. So he can now say, I'm going to set aside 40% of my produce for, uh, immediate sale to cover my cost, but I'm going to also set aside 30% for futures. I'm willing to risk, for example, basmati rice, right? So I don't think it grows in Tamil Nadu, but it grows in a lot of other places in India, the foothills of Himalayas. So basmati rice value goes up. It's like wine, right? Its value goes up as it ages. So can a farmer now take the risk of creating a perfect aging scenario for basmati rice, set aside 30% of his produce that he will sell it at a killer profit later on? Those are the ways to think about it, but India is nowhere in the picture. So I think Piyush Goyal's critique is correct. And I just dished out a free advice. So entrepreneurs among you can do that. But since I discounted the Tambram right up front saying that we are not entrepreneurs, which Sree Iyer objected, I can tell one thing. When it comes to math
you
and
know,
computing, we are the kings. Okay. So you develop the business idea, come back to me for algorithm. I am here to count. Yeah.
Venkatji, I have to tell you this. PGurus started in 2016 April. Now we are April 2025, 9 years in existence. I have not shown a profit in a single year. In fact, I just filed for this year also, and we are again running a loss. The reason I'm saying this is that has not shied me away from taking on some of the risks. Some
No,
of the things that
𝗏𝗏𝗏 is our birthright.
But what I'm trying to say is, I discovered that I could pick up languages relatively easily and I could converse in those things. And I also saw that when I used to tell in parties, right? When I used to tell stories, people used to really hook in. Said, oh, okay, looks like I have this gift that I can tell even a simple thing in a very interesting way. At the end of the day, it could be, people say, oh, it's very simple. Why is it making such a big deal? But if it is an important thing and if I can make it in a simple way, that has a value, which is what is PGurus videos. So
Yeah.
what I'm trying to tell you is whatever I said about, believe in yourself, find out what your strengths and weaknesses are, I applied that to myself. And whether I succeed, I'm not worried about that.
No,
I'm having
success.
the time of my life, interacting with
You
people like you. Kalavai, come on now. How many people are going to be there with this kind of a breadth of intellect that you bring to this channel? And it is my good luck and the good luck of all our viewers that they get to listen to someone like you.
It's the other way
You want
around.
to say something? Yeah.
It's the other way around. I should be thanking you because, people with ideas are dime a dozen, right? But then someone who sets up a channel and propagates these ideas, I think that's a tougher work. Okay, you are doing a better job. I should be thanking you. And then, you were making an earlier point, right? About success and failure. Okay, so success doesn't come overnight, right? Somebody cracks IIT advanced or gets into Stanford or Wharton or MIT or something like that. Doesn't happen overnight, right? And one doesn't get into Google or Microsoft or Meta or Netflix overnight. It takes years and years of preparation, okay, and a lot of failures before we make it to success. I think here is the key, right? So a lot of it is about, it's of course about intelligence, it's about talent, it's about discipline. You cannot succeed without working very hard, you cannot succeed without being intelligent. All of those things are a given. But over and above everything, I think what matters is also perspective. Okay, I'm going to take one example, Sree here. You emphasized a lot on upping the skills, without which we won't survive in the future because a lot of the work can be replaced by AI. And when we talk of upping the skills, okay, what do we mean, right? Getting the priorities right. That's the number one thing. Take in India, there is something called the LPG subsidy, which I think every Indian receives. You get something like 24 rupees a month, okay, as LPG subsidy. Okay, this is given by the central government, by Modi government, and this is available to everyone who makes less than 10 lakh rupees a year. That's like 99 point whatever percentage of Indian population. This adds up to 850 crore rupees a month. Okay, total waste of money, right? Because at 24 rupees a month, you cannot even buy a pack of BDs. A packet of BDs, Ganesh BD, costs 32 rupees in Chennai. Okay, it's totally useless waste of money. But whereas 850 crores a month can go a long way in building cancer cure. Immunotherapy, for example. Okay, you can handpick 1,500 scientists, okay, train them, okay, and then create the infrastructure for that, because this is 850 crore rupees a month. Okay, then every month you can build all the infrastructure, import best talent from abroad, go to US, go to Israel, import the best talent, import the best machinery, get your instrumentation folks, your engineers to expand the frontiers of technology. You would have generated billions and billions of dollars of worth in just 3 to 4 years of time. But look at the misplaced priority. Modi is compelled to give 24 rupees a month as LPG subsidy, even though he is not a person who is inclined to give freebies. But why is he forced to do that? You have to indulge in some tokenism because all the other political parties are dishing out freebies. Look at others like Stalin of Tamil Nadu. He is promising what, like 2,000, 3,000 rupees a month to women, impossible to give. And Rahul Gandhi promises 1 lakh rupees a year, impossible to give. But this is the mindset, right? So as a result, so Modi cannot go the complete meritocratic route and say, look, I'm going to invest all these things which will yield wealth in the next 3 to 5 years. I'm not going to give you 24 rupees a month. He cannot say that. So he's compelled to do that. That's why Indian people have to start questioning a lot of the default things that we have come to accept. And we have to think in terms of what it takes to generate wealth. And that is going to be inseparable from cutting off wasteful funding and redirecting it into R&D, and then promoting meritocracy and attracting the best talent to invest 3 to 10 years of research to generate wealth for India. That's what Silicon Valley did. That's what Wall Street did. That's what the Chinese are doing today. And India cannot afford not to do that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Venkat. And we have a couple of questions, I think. Let's take them and then we can wrap it up. We are already 37 minutes into this program. We didn't realize how quickly time flew today. Manoj Soma wants to know, can we expect any long-term agreement with USA in semiconductors, sir, as USA needs to trust more India?
Yeah. The answer is yes. I think again, it's only an informed guess based on everything I'm seeing. US wants to bring semiconductors back on shore, right, to the US. However, there's going to be a bottleneck for that. Okay, number one, it's going to be expensive if they are counting entirely on American labor. Okay, and then there'll be a lot more of regulations too. And then America would want to bypass both of those, and they are looking for an alternative. Today, most of the semiconductors are made in Taiwan. Okay, and it's a smaller country, and it is in a bit of a tight spot because it's in the South China Sea, the straits out there, and then hence vulnerable to any Chinese aggression. And China can also potentially cut off the trading routes. So America would want to look for replacement for that, and part of that is bringing the high-end design and then high-end manufacturing trials, a lot of those things in the US. But America needs an alternative to China, and India is best suited to become that alternative. But that won't happen just because we say, hey, please consider us. Okay, it's not, international relationships are not based on panhandling. Okay, these are based on us making good business case. Okay, so if India goes to China to the US and says, we'll cut tariffs. Okay, come and make investment here. Okay, and then in return we'll eliminate a lot of tariffs in industries that matter to the US. One industry we could talk of is agriculture, right? So how can India have 2/3 of the population indulging in agriculture? The more you feed, you're feeding the monster, because that's why the Khalistani farmers could come and blockade Delhi. Okay, get rid of all that. Import American agricultural produce. And that way, Indian farmers will be forced to go and find other jobs, number one. Then invite America to invest on two fronts. Okay, one is semiconductor manufacturing and research. This is number one. But this is not going to happen overnight. Okay, for this to happen, India has to really incentivize. Okay, incentivize the American companies, give them 10 or 20-year tax holiday, even 25 years tax holiday. Okay, because these are the areas of research. Okay, in these frontiers of research, AI, immunotherapy, cancer research, drug trial and testing, semiconductor research, space tech, give them 25 or even 50-year tax break. Okay, come invest in R&D, manufacture in India, walk away with tax break. Okay, even repatriate the money to the US. India will be the net beneficiary of that process. Do that. Second thing, invite the Americans to come and invest in private sector schools and universities across India. Okay, no interference by Indian government, no interference by Indian policymakers, judiciary, police, nothing. No reservation, nothing. This will be run by the Americans according to the American law. Set up education zones in India, just like you have export processing zones. Like that, every city will have a small education hub. Come and set up. Okay, Cornell University, Yale, MIT, Stanford. They'll set up their campuses. Then the private American K-12 schools will come and set up their campuses. There won't be any interference from the Indians, but Indians will go there and study, pay fees. Nothing is free. Okay, either you pay fee or you get scholarship because you're bright. Do that. I think India will be catching up and very quickly overtake somebody like China, because India still has one advantage which China doesn't: English. We are still conversant in English, Chinese are not. And second advantage we have is, I think India is a lot more individualistic than Chinese people are. Okay, so China is a very authoritarian society. So that's why you find more Indian entrepreneurs. I was joking about the Tambrams in the beginning, but you do find a lot of Tambram entrepreneurs in the Silicon Valley. You find a lots of them in the quants group of banks in Wall Street. Okay, very large numbers. Okay, so no, India can surpass China when it comes to entrepreneurship and individual initiative, provided we become a meritocracy and a capitalistic society. Back to you, sir.
Manoj, I'll put a separate monologue on this about relationships between countries, bilateral relationships. It'll come out in the next couple of days. There's a lot of work that I need to do. It's all in my mind. It's my head. It will come out. I will give you more detailed information about India, United States, and other countries with India. Let's go to the next question, please. Magnet Ranga wants to know, Namaskaram, can the tariffs be taken as a challenge and try for profitability by improving quality and productivity?
Yes, 100% yes. Because, why is, so we talked about the example, I think, either on the previous podcast or the one before that, where we talked about the cost of solar panels, right? India is importing solar panels from China, and they are still 40 or 50% cheaper than the Indian-made solar panels, even though we impose a massive tariff on Chinese imports. Okay, so the cost of production plus the margins, the operating margins, plus the tariff on Chinese products is still cheaper, nearly half of Indian-made products. Okay, so obviously, evidently, this is a productivity issue in India. Okay, it's a skill set issue. It is a corruption issue. All of these things are in place, and of course, a lot of people will argue, oh, China is a dictatorship. They are forcing their people to work 996. 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. Sure, that's the reality. You're competing against the reality. Do what you want. You can talk about, oh, you know what, I want to be lazy. I want to work only 40 hours a week. Then you are not going to be able to compete with the Chinese. Okay. So at the end of the day, this is like nuclear weapon. When one country makes a nuclear weapon, others have no choice than to make it themselves. So China has got this 996 model. You compete with them or you go down. Okay, end of story. Okay, you cannot talk about labor laws and all that socialist nonsense at this stage. Okay, either you go down or you compete. Now, if you want to compete, you have to up your productivity, fewer government interventions, better skill set building. China is doing a fantastic job. Okay, their universities have gone up in quality like anything over the last 35 years. Okay, thank Xi Jinping for that. Okay, he's a visionary. Whether we like him or not, he's antagonistic to India, he's antagonistic to China. So Sree Iyer and I are no fans of his. But even an enemy, when he does something right, you have to admire. When an adversary does something right, you have to admire. You have to emulate that. So look at the quality of education in China. That's way ahead. So yes, there is a productivity issue. There is a profit issue in India with manufacturing. And then there is a skill set issue. And there is a cultural issue. Okay, where people are not willing to put in as much long hours. I'm not talking about some of the IT workers. I'm talking about the core manufacturing, the blue-collar workforce. Okay, they are still stuck in the socialistic past, and that has to change if India were to catch up on the AI game. Yes, I think the force of tariffs, the pressure of tariffs, will compel India to look into some of these areas. How soon they will do that? Everybody's guess.
Next one, please. Vijay Kumar Srivastava, go ahead and drink your water. Do you think, sir, that increasing of tariff will affect trade, may face reduced foreign investment and reserves? Can India treat the same medicine for America? Namaskar,
No,
sir.
no, no. Beggars cannot be choosers. Let's be very clear about that. So when we made COVID vaccines, India made only one indigenous vaccine that probably covered 1% of Indian population, and that was the very old antibody vaccine. Okay, that's like a 150-year technology, like from the days of Jenner and others. Okay, so no, India did not innovate anything new. India depended on, even for the plastic bags for culturing, India depended on the US. US had to export those things to India. mRNA vaccines, India was nowhere in the picture. Okay. And all the spike protein studies and the potential harms they could cause, not a single study in India. Okay. So obviously, if India says, okay, oh, Trump, you are imposing a tariff on us, so we are going to impose. First, remember one thing. Trump is imposing 50% of the tariff on Indian imports compared to what India is imposing on American imports to India. Number one. Okay. So Trump is still being very kind to India and only imposing half of what India imposes on the US. Now, if you go and say, oh, you know what? We are now going to retaliate. Okay. Trump will say, buzz off. Trump doesn't need India. Okay. And as I mentioned earlier, Israel, the entire population of Israel is less than that of Chennai. But Israel produces more innovation and R&D compared to India. All of India, not just Chennai. Okay. So this being the case, India is in no position to flex muscles with the United States. But go one step further. How is it going to benefit India? So India today is a developing nation. It's still a third world country. There's a lot of poverty. There's a serious infrastructure crisis. And there is this huge skill set gap, and India is not prepared to embrace an AI-driven future. This being the case, flexing muscles is not an option that can appeal to low information folks in the echo chamber. They will think, you know what, Trump flexed muscle and India has retaliated in kind. No, India will pay a huge price. Okay. And instead, the right thing to do for India is to partner with the US, eliminate the tariffs for America. Okay. Because if you want to become a counterbalancing force and emerge as the power in Asia, then you have to be on the good books of the US. Okay. And let's be absolutely clear. Where do the best and the brightest of the IITians go? They're not staying in India. Either they go to IIM, ABCL, and then they go and work in multinationals, in management, in investment banking, etc. Or they go to the US where they do their master's and PhD and they work for American tech firms. Okay. So we can all talk about flexing muscles, but this tells you that India is nowhere near becoming a hub for high-level knowledge, capital, investment, and production. And to do that, India has to partner with the United States and not become an adversary of the US.
Next one, 𝗟𝗡𝗐𝗪 wants to know, how will it be possible as labor cost in US is the highest in the world? Solution may be AI robotics for boost production. Is US labor upscale like a Tesla factory worker?
There are 3 or 4 things happen, right? Which when we talk about the cost, okay. Number one, you mentioned a few of those. Yes, AI robotics will replace a lot of those things. And then second thing to remember is that when we talk of cost, right, labor cost, we are just looking at the salary we pay them, right? But now there is also something called insolvency cost that goes with it. Okay, now what happens to Social Security? Okay, US will not be able to honor its Social Security commitments in the next 20, 30 years. Okay, that's because USA is a debt-ridden economy, and instead of putting your contributions into actuaries, that money is spent upfront, and we are expecting the next generation to pay back. Now, when you create a job market in the US, the cost of wage will go up, okay, and the cost of the produced item will go up. But what will also happen is the insolvency crisis will shrink. Okay, your Social Security will get more money, and then you will be contributing to your own healthcare. Okay, that's how US used to operate for decades. And then even more importantly, if we can kick out the illegals, who consume like a massive chunk of education spend, healthcare spend, etc., all of that money is savings, and that will, eliminate the pressure or at least significantly reduce the pressure. This will happen. So, and then one more thing will happen is US is not going to bring 100% of the manufacturing back to the United States. Its prime objective is to minimize dependency on China. It is looking for a counterbalancing force. India is best suited to do that, provided India can become as productive and efficient as China. Okay, China is able to build complete span of bridges in a matter of 30 days. They prefabricate everything. They bring it in. They starting from design to opening the bridge takes them 30 days. Even Elon Musk says that SpaceX is super fast and super efficient, but only the Chinese are a little bit faster and more productive. Okay, that's how good they are. So if India were to replace China, then we have to up our productivity gain. We have to really compete a lot, and we have to overcome laziness. Let's not pretend about anything. There are a lot of people who are aimless, lazy, and they hope that some freebies will save them, but that's not going to happen.
I'll give you a reality check here, Venkatji. This great DMK government is still to complete the one meaningful flyover that will help traffic in Coimbatore. Kovai, for those of you who don't know, is the second most prosperous city in Tamil Nadu after Chennai. Chennai is at a different level because of all these auto companies and other things. Kovai is completely self-built, and they would do more. They would perform better if that one flyover, I mean, we are not even talking metro yet, just one flyover that is still to be completed. It's been work in progress for close to 6 years now. And now the story I'm hearing is, oh, they'll do just a month before 2026 election so that DMK can claim the credit. This is the mindset of your average political party.
And people don't even count the cost of money involved here, right? So,
yes,
when a project that China can do that in 30 days, okay, from the beginning to the end, 30 days, okay, that flyover would be up and running, okay. But what does it mean? If you complete a flyover in 30 days, and let's assume it's a tollway, then you complete in 30 days, and let's look at a 10-year window, then 9 years and 11 months, you'll be generating money, okay, you'll be charging toll, and you'll be cutting the carbon emissions, and people will be traveling fast because time is money. Instead of spending 2 hours on the road, if you spend only 20 minutes, then you're going to spend the rest of the time productively. That translates into money. Whereas, if the same initiative takes you 8 years to complete, then you are making money on it only for 2 years, okay? Instead of making money on it for 9 years and 11 months. It's as simple as that.
Shankar wants to know, Kalavai, why can't the Indians doing so well in US collectively start high-tech, deep tech initiative in India, especially in research, create scholarships in cutting-edge topics?
We can, we could, but the question is whether we should, okay? Because at the end of the day, think of it as investment, okay? So myself and Sree Iyer are both in the US, both of us are from Silicon Valley, and if we invest, okay, look at it from a very human perspective, right? We do invest in India, okay, to some extent, but there are always concerns, okay? If I invest, for example, in India, then how is the Indian rupee going to get valued or devalued against the US dollar in the long term, okay? That's going to be a huge concern, right? If I'm going to make an investment for 30 years and the value of my investment is going to become half of what it is, then it's a discouragement to me. Then second thing is, the entire judicial system, right? Whether we like it or not, the American judicial system is good at the cutting edge. Okay, if you're starting up a company, you sign a contract, you put in the money, you're protected. Okay, or even you get a cap table share assigned to you by the investor, it's protected. Okay, nobody can overrule that. Forget that any of that in India. Take something very simple. You own a home, you're a retired person or you're a widow. Let's say you're a widow, 70-year-old widow. Okay, your husband died, but then he built 2 homes, one of which you can live in, and the other one you will rent out and survive on that rent money. If the tenant refuses to vacate your house, you can go to the court. You'll be fighting that case for 25 years with no resolution. Probably you'll die. Okay, your grandchildren will inherit the house afterwards. Okay, that's how pathetic the Indian system is. This is number one. Then the next factor to consider is meritocracy. Okay, Where are we going to invest? Okay, I'm just taking a hypothetical scenario. If you ask Sree Iyer tomorrow that, hey, Sree Iyer, we are, Patrick Soon-Shiong and Serum Institute have come up with a massive research initiative. They are investing $2 billion, and then they have invited matching contributions. Can you guys invest $1 million? Let's say Sree Iyer says, yes, I'm going to invest a million. Okay. What is he most interested in? Return on investment. Okay, he's putting the money in. He wants to make sure that Serum Institute can now attract the best and the brightest researchers. Copyright laws will protect their creation, their invention. And the third, all of that money is safeguarded, right? So you cannot do any of those things in India today. Okay, so the moment you start, the courts can interfere and drag on forever, and there is no meritocracy in India. Okay, and it's very difficult for you to bring in. Let's say you want to bring in 20% of your talent from the US. Okay, because they can lead the research, and they can, for example, you identify a university and invest $500 million in it to drive this research, and you make a very blunt statement. Okay, let's take the University of Madras. I'm making it as a case, right? And you invest $500 million private money from the US in research, okay, in immunotherapy research. In all likelihood, you will say all the existing professors are fired, okay, because they are unfit to be professors, okay. And you will say instead we will bring professors from the United States and other countries, other Western countries, give them tenureship and give them a luxury housing, give them total freedom. Nobody can interfere with that, okay. Their only job is to provide immunotherapy cure for, let's say, leukemia, okay. They can, if the Indian courts, even the Supreme Court or the Chief Minister or Prime Minister demands an explanation, they can say, buzz off. We are not answerable to you. Okay. We are only accountable to the US. You do that, people will go and invest money in India. Otherwise, they are not going to do that.
Next one, please. Gitanjali Rajaram wants to know, I totally agree that India needs to up the game in workforce training. Tamil Nadu is still good when it comes to education, but cannot endorse the kind of 9 to 9 work.
Let's start with the second one, right? 9 to 9 work. I'm not saying everybody should work 9 to 9. Okay. You make the choice. Okay. I can give you 2 job options. You can drive Uber. Okay. You may make some decent money. Okay. You choose whenever you want to work. You can say, yeah, I can only work from morning 6 to afternoon 2 o'clock. I'll do 5 sawaris and end of story. Okay. Do that. Okay. I don't mind. Okay. If you are willing to live off the earth and then you are not expecting state of the art treatment when you fall sick, or you are not showing entitlement to buy a 2 crore rupees apartment in Bangalore, I'm fine with it. Okay, go and do that. But if on the other hand, you want to go and work for a tech company in Silicon Valley or become a cancer researcher, you are racing against time, right? There are going to be 10 pharma companies that are going to invest in a cancer drug, and only one of them will make it to the goal post. And that means there is no alternative to work long hours. Elon Musk said, you can work 40 hours a week, and the project will take 12 months, but double the time. You work 8 hours a week, the project will be done in 6 months. End of story. Okay. And there are professions where working long hours is the only option. Okay. You go to a fan company, a tech company in Silicon Valley, or a quant group in Wall Street, everybody is super intelligent. Everybody who works there is super intelligent. They go to the best colleges in the US, are hired, top-notch talent. What separates them one from the other? The number of hours you are willing to put in, the amount of stress you are willing to take. Okay, that's absolute need. Now, coming back to the quality of education, no, Tamil Nadu is not good. Okay, let's be very clear about that. Stereotypes and propaganda notwithstanding, most of the students in Tamil Nadu, I'm not talking about any other subject, I'm talking about Tamil. A vast majority don't even have reading comprehension, writing skills in Tamil language, even up to primary school level. In other words, there are adults who lack even primary school level competency in Tamil language. Take mathematics or science, pathetic. There are 12, this is K to 12. And look at the number of students from Tamil Nadu who qualify in IIT JEE Advanced. Minuscule. Okay, very few of them do. Go back and count the numbers all the way up to maybe 1995 or something. You will find 20-25% of the students hailed from Tamil Nadu then. Okay, so first and foremost, Tamil Nadu education is not good. And then when we go to higher education, it's pathetic. Okay, so even when you look at top schools like, the 5 or 6 top IITs, most of them, those are very good schools. Okay, getting in is damn tough, especially in the merit category. Reserved categories are pathetic. Okay, and I think those schools should get away with reservation. But merit category is very good when they get in. But what do those students do? All of them, they go abroad. Okay, or to IIM, ABCL for their MBA. Okay, so they are not doing research inside IIT for the most part, because we don't have a culture of research. It's not rewarding. Whereas in the US, you can come and do research for 10 years and then you can walk away with a sizable profit. So without capitalism, without meritocracy, you cannot build all of these things that they are talking about, Gitanjali. So that's why I think India and Tamil Nadu have a long way to go.
Next one, please. This is the last question. Let's not take any more. Naresh Nilakantan wants to know, is this a concern that the VCs also want quick returns in India, Bharat, and thereby deep tech startups didn't get noticed for long and trusted funds? Your views?
I can go first. Yeah, I can go first if you want.
Yeah.
There are always going to be two types of VCs, right? So there are VCs who are going to look for a quick return on investment. But I think still there is very large number of. So today when you look at it, right? So this was largely true in the earlier phases of VC funding, right? The startup boom and other things, the early stages of digital transformation, etc., where people were putting in money and then they were looking for create something, create a lot of hype around it, let's sell it off, go IPO, make money. Okay, but everybody realized fairly quickly that only 5% of the startups go to IPO stage. Okay, and people learned, VCs learned, they are not pumping in money that easily quickly, because you cannot do a Me Too product and make a lot of money today. Okay, that's the simple reality. Otherwise, why do you have just Uber and Lyft in the US and just Uber and Ola in India? So why is that you don't have 30 of those companies? Okay, because without differentiation, you cannot make money on Me Too products. That's the simple reality. Now, what will happen is there are also large number of VCs who are investing in unicorns. Okay, we talked about the example of Patrick Soon-Shiong. He made $10 billion selling his company, and then out of that he invested $3 billion. Okay, in making the first anti-oncogenic vaccine, quote within quote vaccine, because he says it's not really an antibody vaccine, it's more of an immunotherapy where it teaches the T cells how to fight the invasive virus. Okay, so he put $3 billion, 3 billion. Okay, each billion is about 8,700 crore rupees. He put that money and he developed all of that, zero return on investment, and then he gave that research and all of that for manufacturing to Serum Institute in Pune at no cost. Okay, so forget not that there is a large body of investors, okay, who have made money and who are very focused on investing in areas, in domains that will change the future of the world. But to do that, it's not just going to be on, hey, why don't you come and invest in India? Okay, we have to, if you want to win, you have to show some skin. Okay, that's at the end of the bottom line, right? So to do that, if you have an education system that's meritocratic and that's comparable to the US, if you have an R&D investment ecosystem that's comparable to what the investors, the unicorns in the private sector is expecting, that's a good thing. And then if you can offer legal protections and intellectual property protections and repatriation and completely keep out all these social justice warriors, all these parasites out of that. Okay, because look at it. Look at campuses like IIT Madras, IIT Bombay, where all these scoundrels like this Ambedkar Periyar study circle, whatever it is, right? Scoundrels. Okay, basically, they are all unfit to be in IIT. They are unfit to be in any college. Okay, these are all what I call 15% pass, 20% pass gangsters. And then what the governments did was, IITs, the top IITs used to be centers for engineering and STEM. Okay, they introduced bogus subjects like sociology and all these humanities, nonsense subjects. Nobody will find a job studying those except in NGO. So you are a born parasite, you are trained to be a parasite, and you will go and work for a parasitic NGO. Okay, those useless thugs were let into IIT, and then they started caste-based agitation and all these things, and that has put a lot of fear in the minds of professors. They cannot even fail somebody. So if any of you know that 90% of students, IITs kick out students, okay, after 2 semesters, if you don't do well, IIMs do that, okay, and many of them get kicked out. And in many of the IITs, 90% of the students who are kicked out after 2 semesters are SCST, okay. Despite lowering the standards for them, they are not able to do well, okay. That's because you cannot you you cannot build a six-pack abs without hitting the gym for years, okay. And you cannot be munching on snacks and fast food, junk food, and then all of a sudden say, ठीक है 2 दिन में तो gym जाऊंगा, then I'll build a six-pack abs, okay, I'll become like hrithik roshan. It doesn't work that way, okay. So if India can do all these things, somebody will come and invest money in India, okay. But you don't want to invest money in India where the judiciary will come and harass you, the politicians will harass you, the police will harass you, your investment is not protected, IP laws don't protect you, and even worse, you have to comply with all this social justice nonsense. And somebody who's a parasite, who is unfit to do any work, will now come and start a false allegation that I was discriminated against on the basis of caste, religion, whatever nonsense, right? And then the productive people have to not only do the work but also defend themselves. It's not going to work.
Thank you so much, Venkatji. And viewers will be back again in about 20 minutes' time with General Ravi Shankar as we take a look at the new strategy China is adopting or appears to adopt towards Taiwan. It's a very important new breaking news. Do join us for that. Venkatji, what can I say? Today, this one was an hour and 6 minutes and pure gold. Viewers, please share this thing amongst your children, your grandchildren, especially when they are not very sure about, you have to find out when they are in a mood to listen. If you just send it like within next 2 minutes, if they are not listening, they won't watch it. But there will be a small window when they want to listen because they are not very sure. So that's the time to tell them, look, this is how the world is changing.
And I'll add to that, right? One sentence. Okay, if there are youngsters in your family, teenagers, there are only 16 years in your life when you can actually learn all the skills. K to 12, followed by
Yes.
4 years of college, because only a handful go to PhD, right? So maybe a couple of years in MBA later on in your life, but 16 years, gold, okay? If you don't invest and if you don't take up the most challenging subjects, you are not going to thrive in the future world, okay? Because think of it, right? If something like, look at the new languages and frameworks that have come up, Mojo, Modular, etc., that are today, for example, Mojo is today 35,000 times faster in compilation than Python. Okay, that's the reality, right? And it doesn't even have an interpreter. It straight away goes to compiler. Okay, world is changing. Okay, massive changes, and it can handle different types of data sets. What happens when fractals become the prime repositories of information, and then these kind of languages, you are looking at massive amount of skill sets you have to build. Okay, if you are a responsible parent or an adult, that is one thing you can and you should do. If you find a 13, 14-year-old kid or a 15-year-old kid who is a relative or a friend, and you're a well-wisher, just pick them up and challenge them. Okay, I have been mentioning a whole bunch of things, right, around technology, science, and all these things just in this podcast. Pick up some of those things and ask them, how familiar are you with these concepts?
Yeah.
Okay, and how familiar are you, with something like if you take something like Bayes' theorem, then what do you know about posterior probability, prior probability, and how those things change? And when we talk about AI-based simulation, what do you understand by Monte Carlo simulation? Just throw some words at them and see whether they are even able to comprehend, talk about that. Okay, if they are getting excited about that and they are talking about that, then I think they are primed for a future. And if those questions draw a blank as a response from them, then you have a serious problem. Okay, then you are not supposed to mollycoddle that kid. You are supposed to tell that kid, you are preparing yourself for a race to the bottom. Shape up or you will really get to the bottom. Do that, because you don't have to teach anyone to enjoy life, right? So, we all got married at some stage in life, and then we all made love. Nobody had to come and teach us how to make love and how to find pleasure out of that. Okay, that's all in our genes. That's all in our evolution. We all figure out those things. Okay, nobody has to go and teach you. Here is a very tasty food. Here is pizza. Here is dal makhani and all these things. जाके कोशिश करेंगे चलो. Okay, you will drive 30 miles, 30 kilometers to do that. Okay, the only thing you have to be taught is to work hard to feel the pain and not postpone it, not procrastinate, and instead learn skills, build those blocks one on top of the other, and invest 10 years, 15 years of your life without instant gratification. Okay. You are not going to become an engineer in Microsoft or Google or Netflix or anything without investing years and years of hard work, sleeping 3 or 4 hours a day and solving and compiling your programs. You're not going to make it to that goal unless you are willing to make this investment. Okay. So the 12 K to 12 plus 4, you should be really pushing the frontiers. And when you're 13, 14-year-old kid, and when some adult in your family says, are you familiar with all these things? This is what I heard in this podcast. It looks like these are the areas where someone like Patrick Soon-Shiong has invested $3 billion and he has given it away free for Serum Institute. And do you understand any of the technology, any of the computing, any of the other nanotech and other delivery mechanisms that will drive this in the future? I think that's a very reasonable question to ask and a very responsible thing to do. And for kids, don't be entitled. Okay, so just because you are entitled and you think you are entitled to get some things, you are not going to get it. Okay, because if tomorrow, let's say you are doing a particular job and that job is eliminated by AI, your entitlement goes up in flames. Okay, instead, accept responsibility, work hard. Okay, and then build your own future.
Yes, indeed. Truer words are not spoken before this. Worker of tomorrow is going to not only compete with man, he's also going to compete with machine. Thank you so much. Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Thank you.